Hi, it's Julie from Love's Beginning with part two about, sharing guidance about being walked through when you're kind of holding on to something like a bone, demonizing a particular aspect of the illusion, and feeling, you can feel this, that you're not seeing your brothers and sisters as who they really are. You're not being energetically supportive to them. You're more pulling at them. Um, and you might not be realizing it, but in doing so, creating a separate and better identity for yourself. So the example I was given was that of the pedophile, because it's one that people join in mutual hatred toward quite easily. And also a feeling of helplessness. Where there's hatred, there's anger. Where there's anger, there's a feeling of powerlessness. It's not knowing your true power and feeling that there's one who can truly harm you and harm others, and feeling angry and helpless about that. So, yes, on this journey, we become more peaceful and more harmless. And we learn more and more how even the thoughts we have without action, just the thoughts we have, can lead to the experience of harm within our roles here. So we become very loving, um, but at the same time, when we're seeing other behavior and we're tempted to judge it, um, I'm asked to pause at that point and to see what's going on, because when I'm going to judge, I'm going to step away from my power. So I don't want to do that, especially within a storyline where it looks like one person is causing a lot of harm to others, and especially um, children. Not that we value children more, it's just that we feel responsible. We want to care for them, we want to support them. Well, really, we want to do that for everybody. And we start there. We learn by having experiences with children and learning how to interact respectfully, and learning what our true protective power is. And it's not fear. It doesn't come from fear, and it doesn't come from hatred. So, let's say we're building a case here. When we're building a case against someone or against a particular aspect of the storyline we're living, the storyline that is appearing around us, we're giving our power away. And we're also attempting to build up a case of a bad guy over here. So, opposite that bad guy, you'll notice in that story, you're not the bad guy. And you might not think this is very important when you're in the middle of railing against something, but actually, it's everything. You're building an identity, whatever you're building an identity for somebody else, and being precise and detail oriented about it and going deep into it, you're building an identity for that other. You're building an opposite identity for yourself and seeking protection there. This is like your safe house you're trying to build. And then you'll go to the idea of struggle. Well, if I just struggle enough and push down whatever the bad thing is here, then over here I'll experience safety. You're building up a sense of safety for yourself. But when I'm doing that, it's a very shaky house with a very faulty foundation, and it's destined to fall. It's destined to change. So within the opposites we have going on here, it's when we're doing this, it's destined to go back and forth. It's like an amusement park ride. It's part of waking up is realizing we're on an amusement park ride, and we're powering the back and forth through our reactiveness. We're bringing on those back and forth experiences. So we learn to stop on behalf of ourselves, on behalf of our brothers and sisters with whom we can share information mind to mind. We learn how to stop the ride, get off, and walk into reality. and enjoy that together. So we're learning how to stop what's habitual for us. So, number one, we're building up the identity of the villain. In this case, it's the pedophile. Number two, once we've done that, we are not staying in contact with who they really are. We're not taught to do this. Our true power is that, going slowly here, because I'm being told, because it's not habitual to me either yet. I have to stop and remember I'm safe and remember what my true power is and exercise that power. Our true power is the mind to mind connection we have with everybody, and that includes everybody across time and space. We are touching every mind all the time. And this is not a new one. I've talked about this before. But let's say we're thinking about somebody who's been labeled a pedophile. And we're thinking about that particular person. In that moment, we have an opportunity to contact and allow to expand the joy and the love that is present within every cell of the body, of that person's body, the vehicle they've shown up in. And remember, they're always doing us a divine service. I'll get to that later. But right now, just the very simple idea that there is love and joy dancing in every cell of every being and every molecule of anything, everywhere, it's always there. So if we stop past the story and go to that level, right there, just stay there without a story. Now imagine you're sitting with them and you're able to do that without a story about them. You're inviting those beings into the place beyond stories about themselves, into the place of the now, very powerful and loving place, into the place beyond stories of others, into the place where all power is. Remember, we're always either helping to push others' minds further into the illusion, and that can only happen if they're already off balance. If you're in balance, you can't be pushed. You're in a very stable spot, okay? Or inviting them through love back to the very stable reality, what truly is underneath the surface of the storyline we're making. Whatever chaos appears to be around us, we can take responsibility for it. I'm responsible. I'm part of this storyline. And like I said, with the amusement park ride, we can be part of its calming. We can be part of the ride stopping. And we're privileged to be part of this. We intended to be part of this. Walking off the ride together with everybody. Because we've allowed this calm to come. So we're always part of the illusion that we're making. We're showing up as part of the storyline. We're always touching the minds of all others. So if we take a moment to stay in contact with other beings past all of their stories, we're doing a very real service for them. In the case of the pedophile, we have to look and see what, I'm going to say she, just to, what do I say? Just to provide something unexpected, some balance, because we always tend to go to the he. And statistically speaking, that's probably true, according to whatever you might look up, whatever information you would find. But what I'm being told right now is that you never know what you're going to find. If you truly allow your perceptions to fly open, you realize how very flexible the storyline is. And you will allow it to change. Not that, making all the pedophiles women versus men is any kind of positive change. It's just we can allow very drastic change within our storylines if we drop our insistence on what was and what will be. If you notice your negative focus on what was and your negative insistence on what's going to be, it's going to be that way. Well, did you just order it up? Because the storyline can comply, the illusion can comply with what you're saying it has to be. And if you notice this power of yours, it's a very wonderful power to discover. You're not at fault. Fault is not possible. Fault is part of the illusion, but you are responsible. When you're responsible, you're able to respond and you're able to restore balance. And that comes mind to mind. That comes from sitting in the now. That comes from allowing inspiration to come to you in the quietude and the calm and acting that out. Doesn't mean we don't take action. It means we take inspired action, loving action. And it doesn't mean that we stop and allow our egos to decide what is loving and what isn't. It can be very direct action. Miraculous action. We don't know what it is yet until we calm and we let inspiration to come to us. So, if we go back to the person, the pedophile, and I call her she. So let's say she's seeking innocence. She is reaching out for innocence or something new or something fresh in the form of a person. And that person represents something that is untouched, something that is innocent, somebody who has something that she lacks. How many of us reach out for something that we believe we're lacking in? We're not other than that. That is an extreme example, and it brings up a lot of fear in us. And it brings up a reactive struggle in us. It's our opportunity when we see the fear and the reactive struggle. It's our opportunity to thank that role player. Say, thank you. You showed me the exact longitude and latitude of where I am cowering from my power to handle anything that comes up in this storyline, anything at all, with love. Not something the ego judges as loving or hateful. It's how it feels. You know what feels loving. You know what feels hateful. You know what feels powered by a sense that you're unsafe. You know what feels powered by a sense that you're taken care of, that everybody is. You know what feels powered by a sense that you're victim to, or somebody else could be victim to. You know what feels powered by a sense that you're loved and always supported, and inspiration comes to you and through you. And you can rely on that. You know what feels calm. You know what feels disturbed. You know how that feels. And we can let things settle and go from that inspired and loving place. We know how loving feels. We know how hateful feels. It's not an ego decision. It's not a categorization. We sit, we let ourselves feel, we let it settle, we let the inspiration come, we act on the inspiration. So, where was I with, okay, so this pedophile is reaching out for, let's say, innocence that appears to be elsewhere. If my mind is touching her mind all the time, and I realize my own innocence, we have to realize our own innocence in order to be able to share that sense of it with somebody else. So if I make a commitment because I care about kids and I care about pedophiles and their access to healing, if I make a commitment to find the innocence in myself every day so I can share the sense of that with people, mind to mind, maybe we're called to action, maybe we're called to speech, but thought comes before action and speech. And thought influences how we're always in contact mind to mind with all others. So it doesn't necessarily mean action and speech. It could just be thinking of another. It's very, very, very powerful. How people say prayer is powerful. Thinking of others and knowing their strength and knowing their innocence and knowing they are love, knowing that joy is dancing in every molecule of the body is very powerful. It's the first thing. And then the action and speech come after that. You might be inspired to all kinds of different action and speech, but it comes from the right place. It comes from the place of healing everything. So when we think of the pedophile is trying to find this innocence. Well, so are you. Why do you think the pedophile is showing up in your world? It's your world. Why do you think this imbalance and this sense of threat and victimization and torment, personal torment, is showing up in your world? It's your world. My world. I can be responsible for what's showing up in my world. And I can be willing to be the agent of balance. We all can. So when I'm in communication with this mind that believes it's not innocent, and so it has to find it elsewhere, it has to find it in a form that looks to be innocent. A mind that believes that it's not, doesn't have the attributes of youth, and it has to find them elsewhere. Can you see how that's in our culture? Can you see how we value what we call youth over what we call old age? And that's a whole other topic because aging itself is optional, something we're encouraged to learn about as we actually go through that experience, something we're playfully encouraged to turn around, not actually struggle to turn around though. Be playful with the appearance and allow it to change, not cling to any one aspect of appearance. We're going back to the innocence. We'll stay there. So the pedophile is trying to find innocence, youthfulness, the pleasure it associates with that elsewhere. How are we going to encourage the pedophile to find well-being right here in the heart center of us that's shared? If we don't, and we can't have pedophilia in our world. We can't have that imbalance unless we can't see it. We can't experience it unless we are part and parcel of that very imbalance. We're looking for things elsewhere. We're trying to find sweet, fresh pleasure and bring it to ourselves. I have to tread carefully here because it doesn't mean I say do not go after pleasure, or doesn't mean we don't move toward what attracts us. It means that we allow our minds to clear and we allow things to settle. And we come from a loving place. And then we move toward what attracts us. And how are we going to share this balance with the mind of the pedophile if we don't allow ourselves to see we have access to it right now? So, the way to accept healing for ourselves, because that's the only way we can share it with anybody else, is to have the intent to share it. Is to, when we're faced with a situation where there's a villain, to realize how powerful we are. And to realize we're not subject to the imbalance that we see in them. And we're not subject to the imbalances we may enact in our daily lives. That we're something foundational and prior to that. And that we sit in what we are. We know. We know the love that animates every molecule, every cell. And it's a very simple story at that level. That's why I'm usually taken to that level, because there's no story at that level. There's just potential. So when we sit here now, and there are storylines about pedophiles, how do you want the story to go? Do you want there to be bad guys so you can show up as a good guy and so you can fight evil? You can play that story out. You can live that dream. You can be that one. That's what here is for. It's for taking on all these roles. But when we get sincerely to the point of being able to thank all the role players without exception, because we are one, there's only one of us. So when we exclude any one of us, we lose touch with our power. Our power comes from the one of us, where we all meet. And we all meet in the heart center. And just the sense of I am. That very simple place. And we have to know that it belongs equally to all of us. And that power is available equally to all of us. And to empower everybody when we contemplate that. Believe me, we want people to be empowered. It's not that you want to take power away from somebody you're calling villain. You want to give them heaps of power, lots and lots of power. Not illusory power, power within the illusion that looks like power over somebody. That's struggle, and it's not real. It appears to be very real. What you want is to give them access to heaps and heaps and heaps of power, which is what they are, to put them in touch with their true identity. And true power unites us. True power balances all our perceptions. True power ushers in happy storylines because we're dropping fear. True power has no fear in it. So you can be playful with that when you're finding a villain anywhere and think, well, what I want to do is hook them up to power. I want them to have as much power as they want. But we're saying true power, not false power, not power over. So when you empower yourself, you realize how powerful you are within this storyline to influence it, to come from a place of love, to know who everybody is behind all the costuming and all the events and all the experiences that we're calling to ourselves. Right now in this healing journey, we're calling all these experiences to ourselves to give ourselves the opportunity to be loving, to find balance, to be inspired, to invite inspired thoughts to ourselves instead of struggling or powerless ones, to invite inspired speech to us instead of struggling speech, to invite inspired action, to us instead of struggling action. We know how that feels. Just empowered, flowing action. Everybody deserves the flow. Everybody deserves power. Everybody deserves love. And when they have all those things, they don't need to look outside of themselves to restore a lack. And we can thank people showing up as pedophiles within this storyline, and people showing up as their victims within this storyline. Thank you for showing me how I attempt to use people to fulfill a lack. Thank you for showing me the dynamics of this in a way I can feel. I can feel it. Thank you for allowing me to release this dynamic of attempting to use people to fulfill a lack which I don't actually have. Thank you for showing me this dynamic so clearly that I can release it now. Thank you for letting me learn this lesson to the point and to the depth where I don't need you to help me in that way anymore. Thank you. I appreciate you. I see your costumes and your disguises and your scripts, and I release you from them. If we release each other from the roles we think we need to play or they need to play in order to form our identity as something other and something best and something better and something successful, then they're free, and that's what we want for them. We want freedom. Are we willing to accept our own healing today? Are we willing to accept our own balance today? Are we willing to be empowered today and to be willing to share that power with others? It's all about our response versus our reaction to the storyline. And to understand that we're determining the storyline. The storyline is it kind of populates itself around us. We take one step, and everything in the world seems to change and shift, and another step, and another step. And so much can change so quickly. So are we going to allow the positive changes to come? Knowing that people can change and be healed so quickly. Are we willing to share that healing? Instead of making judgments, instead of struggling, instead of feeling powerless, are we willing to step into our power today so we can share that power and that healing with everybody? Everybody we talk to, everybody we think of? Are we willing to stop feeling subject to the illusion and to step into the role of creatorship? Are we willing to do that today? We always have that choice. It's always up to us. We're never, never, ever, ever helpless. We're always surrounded by non-physical help in seeing this. We're always surrounded by non-physical help in getting access to loving thoughts and empowered thoughts. We're always surrounded by non-physical help in getting access to loving speech. And not speech the ego judges as loving or not. It can be surprising the form it takes, but allowing it to come to us so we can voice it. Are we willing to allow loving action to come through us today, and not something a hurt child, the ego identity, defines as loving or not loving? Like truly loving and supportive action, no matter what the form is. We can feel it. Not judge it, but feel it. Are we willing to do that today? Are we willing to feel? Because in our episodes within this story of feeling victimized, we've shut down our feeling centers because we don't want to be hurt anymore. But our feeling centers are the key to empowerment. So are we going to let ourselves feel today, all day, every moment? No, it's not torture. It only is in the beginning. when we're encountering our hurts and releasing, letting all the blame go, letting all the separate identities go, going down, 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 down to the place where we all meet and staying there. And I'm not claiming to stay there all the time. I am there. My true being is there. But do I allow my perceptions to remain there? No, that's why I'm talking to you. that's why I'm being guided. We're all doing this together. So I wish you very well in your journey today, and I hope it's a very good one. Thank you.